Good morning. Words matter. Words matter. We all know this. But specifically in this news cycle, there are some words that are coming up repeatedly: genocide and domestic terrorism. And because they're being used by so many so often, I just wanted to take a moment to talk a little bit about what both of them mean and why, depending on who says it and in what way the words are being used, it really matters. So one of the big headlines yesterday was that President Biden called what's happening in Ukraine genocide. And this really matters because he's the president of the United States. But it also matters because if it is determined that there is a genocide happening, international treaties require intervention. So this is why he quickly said after that comment, well, I'm going to leave it to the lawyers to decide, because he was trying to say, I believe it's genocide, but that's not the official stance of the United States of America, because it would mean that we would have to get involved in a more direct way. Genocide, the term actually dates back to 1944. Geno means race or tribe. Side means killing. So that's an easy way to remember, what does genocide really mean? And when you look at the actual definition according to the UN treaty, it means, and I'm just pulling out the main parts, the intent to destroy a national, ethnic, racial, or religious group. So you might say, well, okay, fine. Well, then isn't all war genocide? You know, some would argue that. Some will argue what's happening in Ukraine is genocide because Ukrainians are being targeted. But others will argue this is war. President Putin is targeting Ukraine because of politics and power, not necessarily because of race or nationality or religious belief. A thin line may separate the two, but these are the two different beliefs. Let's go to our other big story, the New York City subway shooting. Right away, there were references to domestic terrorism. And certainly what happened on the subway terrorized people, but domestic terrorism is a specific term. And it may surprise you to know that there's no federal criminal charge of domestic terrorism. So the FBI defines domestic terrorism as this: as an effort to intimidate or coerce a civilian population or government, or affect government by mass destruction, assassination, or killing. Domestic terrorism is not criminalized under U.S. federal law. It's not a chargeable offense. So I can't be charged with domestic terrorism like I could be charged with terrorism if I'm attached to some sort of foreign terrorist organization, for example. I could be charged with attempted murder, and domestic terrorism could be part of that case. And the way that it would come in most likely would be as a sentence enhancement. It would increase my penalty, although I wouldn't officially be charged with it. The question about whether or not we should have a domestic terrorism charge has been an area of intense debate, both at the state level and the federal level. What's holding it back? Well, there's a lot of nuance to this, but here's just a part of it. You know, in America, I'm protected to a certain extent to speak out against my government, even aggressively, but I'm already prevented from committing a crime in the name of that. So some would argue we already have the laws in place to properly prosecute someone who is committing an act of domestic terrorism. Others would say, no way. We need a specific charge. And these are the different sides of the debate. We can look back on a series of different stories over the course of the last several years, several decades, where there's a debate about whether or not something is genocide or whether or not something is domestic terrorism. But these words really do have implication at a very high level of government. And that's one of the reasons why we're either seeing them used officially or not. So just something to keep in mind, just a little tip to keep you smarter. And if you have questions and comments, let me know. We'll continue this conversation and always more on all the news items on smarternews.com. Have a great day.